Ben, welcome to People in Legal.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Great to have you up in Sydney. Sorry about the weather.
No dramas, that's fine.
We had much better weather, I think, up in Brisbane when we were actually up there recently.
Yeah, it was nice and sunny, but it was still pretty chilly.
Was that the state of origin?
I think it was that day, yes.
And no doubt you were going for New South Wales?
I don't think we're talking about that particular day.
Okay, no, we'll leave that. That's a topic we're not going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
Ben, for our audience, would you like to tell them a bit about yourself and I guess who you are and yourself?
Sure thing. My name is Ben Swindale. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Grant Thornton. Been with the firm now for probably coming up for almost 2 years, but had a long career in professional services. Spent a bit of time in some other industry verticals such as healthcare and a little bit of time in IT consulting as well. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. And your career journey, really interesting, because actually most people that I run into, they dive into legal tech and they stay there for a very, very long time across the world and things. But you've done different things. You've actually, you worked in legal tech, as you said, you've worked in health, you've worked in account, you're currently in accounting, different areas. So, I mean, we'd love to hear about your career journey.
Yeah, I guess I started off in a small IT solution provider in Brisbane. That was one of my first jobs while I was at university. Very quickly worked out that I didn't like being on the vendor side of things. I actually preferred to see projects implemented and see the impact they could make. So I saw a role come up at Mallison Stephen Jakes back in the day and jumped on that one, and that was an IT manager role in the Brisbane office. So I guess I started there, but very quickly wanted to be involved in bigger projects and have a bigger impact. And so I kept on putting my hand up, trying to get involved in larger projects across the firm. Within a couple of years, I'd had the opportunity to then take over the CTO role for Mallison Stephen Jakes, as it was known. And then basically went through lots and lots of projects, large transformation projects over the years, and eventually ended up leading the technical integration of King & Wood and Mallison Stephen Jakes back in around 2012, 2013.
Wow, big project.
It was. That was, pretty full on. At the time, I was reporting into Gerard Needich, who used to run, he was our executive director for technology at the time. Yeah. And after the project, he handed me the reins to take over as CIO. So that was very full on. Great project. I learned a lot on that project. Met some great people, had some great experiences, but that was probably the big one. Then I sort of spent another couple of years at KWM back then. Finished up around sort of 2016. That was sort of I think it was around 17 years or 18 years in legal at that point.
Wow.
Decided I needed to do something a little bit different, and I went off and went to Dimension Data, which is now known as NTT. And I was involved in a very large project for them for the Queensland government, essentially where they were offering technology as a service to a large building, which had something like 20 odd government departments all consuming the same technology platform in a secure multi-tenant fashion. That was good fun. Also learned a lot on that, but then again realised that I did want to be back on the in-house IT role, and so I started looking around for something else. And that was the time when I sort of moved into the healthcare space and actually moved to Melbourne for a role. Started off in diagnostic imaging and then moved across to a cancer care provider, which also had divisions that looked after drug manufacturing, pharmacy businesses around Australia. And that was a very, very complex organisation. In some ways, very, very different to legal. But there are sort of common themes that you see across all these different industries where they have common problems and common platforms that they require. And then I did that for around about another 5 years, and then GT reached out to me and offered me the opportunity to move back into the professional services space, and jumped in on that one and have been there. I've been at GT now for about 2 years, and it's been a great experience. It's been good to be back, experiencing a slightly different side of professional services, but it's been really, really good. Yeah,
it's an amazing journey. Healthcare, consulting, legal, accounting, government, like very, very nice broad sort of range of industries you worked in. What do you think, I mean, for somebody who's not in legal tech right now, who's in one of those sort of industries or another industry himself, I mean, what lessons could they take from those industries into legal tech?
I think the experience that I've had, I've seen different organisations, different industries, and the pace is quite different. Probably some of the things that I think I've seen in healthcare and in consulting can easily apply to legal tech. I think sometimes we like to sort of put our blinkers on a little bit and stay in our own little vertical. But there are some things going on in other industries that we should be paying attention to. Like most other organisations moved to the cloud a lot faster than legal did. I think that's something we should be doing. I think most people are on the journey now, but legal was probably one of the ones that slowed down a little bit, and even accounting was quite a way behind. I think pace of change and just being exposed to different types of technology, I think, is probably the other thing that I sort of picked up from that experience.
I mean, what's the investment like in those industries into IT versus into a legal organisation,
that's actually very different. So I think legal and accounting, from the experiences I've had, does invest a fair bit into technology. So I think that the spend level is quite good. So we're moving into other industries and other organisations. I did find that sometimes the budgets were not quite as generous. But I did think that the attitude to technology, the willingness to change and to move with the times was probably a little bit more aggressive in some of the other industry verticals.
And do you think the people who are actually like in a law firm right now looking for example, for folks to come in there and take leadership roles in the technology sort of realm, is that something useful to consider if they don't come from legal tech? I mean, is that a useful thing to look at if they're coming from different industries?
Yeah, I definitely think don't constrain yourself to the legal space or the professional services space. There are lots of different options out there. I think you'll find that the skills translate really, really well. You'll be dealing with all the same sorts of issues. You've still got backup and disaster recovery and cloud and infrastructure and collaboration. All those things are common across every industry. Document management might be a little bit niche. Practice management systems might be a little bit niche, but other than that, you can essentially apply the same thought process. How you treat document management systems and how you might treat SharePoint or records management, they apply in other industries. Practice management is just an ERP in other terms. So, I think you can really adapt and move quite easily into these other industries. And equally, once you've been outside of the professional services space, coming back into it, you still, you know the same people, the same vendors. The concepts apply the same way, but you can bring in a new perspective and some new ideas. Yeah,
no, definitely. And accounting and legal, I mean, people sort of, sometimes some folks put them in the same bucket. I mean, what in terms of actually from an IT side of things, and solutions side of things?
Yeah, from an IT perspective, it's almost identical. I would say it's 99% the same problem. It's actually quite interesting though. You do see people sort of saying, well, we need an accounting solution. And you're sitting there going, well, this is exactly the same problem that law firms have. Why aren't we looking at the legal space as well? So I do think that even within professional services, people do try to sort of segment the buckets and think about their particular patch and silo it off a little bit, when really it's the same problem.
And I mean, AI, how's that actually sort of impacting where you're at right now with Grant Thornton and how you see it in the industry as well?
Yeah. I think most of the people in the industry see AI as being a fairly significant impact on professional services. A lot of the work that we're doing is around document generation, reviewing documents, summarising documents, looking for issues in documents. So historically we've used things like machine learning and document automation, robotic process automation. I think Gen AI is now the next big thing that we need to be looking at. It's something that we've been looking at quite heavily since ChatGPT sort of appeared on the scene. And our focus has really been around looking at the tools, looking at where they might be able to help us out. And we've really been focusing on the Microsoft suite and looking at products like Copilot. But certainly looking at what the other vendors are doing in the legal tech space and in the accounting tech space as well.
Yeah, so on the topic of AI, it's interesting because the use cases that you've got in an accounting firm versus actually a law firm, they're different.
They are different, but similar sort of challenges. So what we've been doing here at Grant Thornton is we've really been focusing on education and making sure that our people broadly know what technology is out there, how the tools work, what the limitations of the tools are, because there are some limitations to them as they currently stand. And we've been focusing a lot on our training and adoption, really bringing people's skills in terms of prompt engineering, understanding what Gen AI is versus all the other artificial intelligence tools out there. And so far we're seeing massive take-up, particularly in our more junior ranks.
Okay.
The more junior team members are really, really keen to use the technology, and they're chomping at the bit to learn as much as they possibly can. We've been doing essentially workshops with each of our service lines, demonstrating how they can use the tools in their day-to-day lives. And then we've actually been using some of the ideas that our junior team members have been coming up with to then educate the more senior members of the team.
That's very smart.
We're a bit more conservative about the tools and adopting the tools.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got our CEO, our board, our national managing partners all basically chomping at the bit asking for dedicated sessions for their particular area so they can focus it onto their use cases within their service lines.
That's amazing. I mean, how do clients perceive this? Do they think, oh, look, you're actually using AI now, so therefore my bill's going to be less? How do they sort of see it?
Yeah, well, we haven't had that discussion about whether the bill's actually going to come down. But yeah, we're finding that people are expecting us to be using the tools. They're expecting us to be using it for efficiency and, using it as the co-pilot to help the person who's actually doing the work for them to, fact check and look for errors and pick up issues, So we're really seeing it as the co-pilot. It is someone assisting the person. It's not doing the job for them. The human always has to be in the loop and really has to be driving the tool effectively.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've sort of talked to some folks in law firms as well, and they've sort of said some similar things that in the junior ranks it's really been taken up quite well, and they're coming up with ideas. But the initiatives sound amazing.
Yeah, no, it's something that we had a plan. We started off with wide-scale adoption, but then we had an opportunity that came up where we had a conference for our associates, and we were looking for topics to run at that conference, and we thought AI would be a perfect example. So we really just broke down a few different workshops for the different teams within the associate group. And then from our stats, we just saw that our usage just going off the charts. As soon as we did that conference, you could see the spike in usage. And then it really just took off from there. So we then ran the same sort of sessions for different cohorts, and we've just been doing that over the last few years, and it's been really well received.
What have you heard about the take-up of AI in the legal industry? So from your view of outside of legal, and I guess people that you still know in legal, I mean, what have you seen the take-up been like?
I think we're seeing a lot of people experimenting and prototyping, and we're doing the same. So we'll find particular use cases, and we'll host it in Azure OpenAI. We'll use the OpenAI LLMs to analyze those documents and come back with certain results. I don't think we've seen any major successes in that space. We've seen a few vendors like Thomson Reuters, Harvey, people like that have been talking about releasing products, but here in the Australian market, we haven't actually seen a lot of them actually take off yet. I think a lot of it is early prototyping ideas, a little bit of hype, but I think we're yet to see some really good commercial offerings in our space.
Is there an opportunity to actually consult to your clients on AI? Because I mean, I guess there's a lot of people out there kind of unsure how they might use that in the sort of context of how they might run their own business. So is there an opportunity for Grant Thornton, if they become experts in AI, to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity. We haven't really started this as a service offering at this point in time, but we have had interest from clients wanting to know, what should they be doing from a tech strategy perspective? Should they be building it into their tech strategy? And we've also had a few opportunities where, my team have actually been sitting on panels or going to conferences or going to events and talking about our own usage and our own adoption journey. And a lot of our clients are approaching us and wanting to know a little bit more about what we're doing. So, yeah, it's at the knowledge sharing stage, but there's definitely an opportunity there for us to run it as a service offering as well.
No doubt, it sounds amazing. I mean, in terms of law firms, do you guys work with a lot of law firms?
Yeah, we do work with law firms and other professional bodies on a regular basis. So, they're common parts of our business.
Oh, brilliant. And Ben, I'm going to swing back to a point that there's actually some words you said earlier on that just caught my attention. Prompt engineer. And prompt engineering, I mean, people are saying that's almost becoming like a bit of an occupation. They could, that they can study, they can learn,
Yep.
and they're actually people that would be useful in a context of a professional services firm. I mean, is that a direction that is there a speciality in your firm that?
Yeah, there is. I think when some of us that are old enough to remember the days of the internet, I think when the internet first came out and search engines took over and we had the search engine wars, you'd have people that really knew how to craft a good search query and get a good result. And quite often that'd be people in your knowledge management teams in law firms.
Oh, right.
So I really see this as the next iteration of that. Prompt engineering is really just the way to craft the question that you're asking the LLM so that you get the best answer out of it. And I do think there's a niche there that technologists or knowledge managers or people of that sort within firms can really sort of differentiate. But I think it's a skill set that everybody needs. It's it's something we need to educate our people on so that they can actually use the tools effectively themselves instead of having to pass it on to a specialist.
And I mean, from a firm standpoint, I mean, you've got firms of different sizes. I mean, in-house, like the larger firms are going to have in-house AI people, but I guess the smaller firms are going to buy that expertise inside. I mean, is that something you see can actually happening?
Yeah, certainly within the accounting space, we're seeing the Big Four investing quite heavily in this area. So they're building out AI development teams. They're partnering with the likes of Microsoft or OpenAI directly. I think a lot of the smaller or mid-sized firms are going to be more likely to be purchasing off-the-shelf technologies to do this. I'd say we're sort of halfway in between. We're not investing millions and millions of dollars in AI right now. We're spending selectively on off-the-shelf software, and we are doing some prototyping on in-house tools that we can use that we think are going to deliver some value. But I think it is a balancing act. There's a lot of talk about AI hype. A lot of the AI projects within the next couple of years, if they don't deliver, they're going to be wound down. So I think it is about being very careful about where you're spending the money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you heard, there's these. What worries me a little bit is, I guess, these sort of, I shouldn't say fads, but these technologies that come that wax and wane. Blockchain. Everyone's talked about blockchain for a while there, and I think people trying to figure out like a real use case for it and that kind of thing. And I guess, but AI seems stickier and more prevalent out there.
Yeah, I definitely think generative AI. I think is here to stay. I think it's becoming part of our everyday applications. On my laptop here, I've got it built into the Office suite. It's built into our Microsoft products now. Most of the products that we're using these days, things like Salesforce, LinkedIn, all those tools have AI built into them now. So it's becoming a non-negotiable. You don't really have a choice. It's coming. I think blockchain, it's got a very specific scenario that it addresses, and I don't think it's failed to get the same sort of traction as what Gen AI has.
I'm going to swing around to your career for a bit and that sort of stuff. So there's probably people that you've had an incredible journey, and there's probably people who want to know, questions like, what are the biggest challenges you've actually had in your career, and how did you actually overcome them?
Yep. I think one of the big challenges, sort of when you're first starting off, is really when you're dealing with difficult stakeholders, and there's some very strong. What do you say? There's some very, very strong personalities within the professional services space. So I'd say a couple of the really good examples that I've got of challenges that I came up against were dealing with stakeholders who perhaps had a different view of how the project should run, how the merger should operate, all those sorts of things. I think the thing that I learned is you really have to tackle those issues front on. You cannot shy away from it. You can't avoid it. It's better just to essentially deal with it as soon as you possibly can. Don't delay it. You may end up having a heated discussion or a difficult discussion, but I always found that at the end of the day, you actually ended up having a better relationship with that individual. Sorry. I'm just going to take a drink of water. I think once you've had that difficult conversation, you actually build a better rapport with that person that you're working with, and they end up respecting you a lot more after you've actually had that discussion. just as a really good example, one of the people that I went head to head with back in the early days of my career actually ended up being the referee for my role here at Grant Thornton.
Oh, so, incredible. Amazing.
Yeah, I think I must have repaired that relationship pretty well.
No, I agree. Definitely being direct and front on and just tackling things early and not letting things fester is a great thing. Yeah. And I mean, as a leader, as a people leader, I mean, what lessons could you impart or tell other people about things you've learnt there?
I think, right from one of my very early roles, it's all about building the right team and getting the right people around you. I love being technical. I love getting hands-on and rolling the sleeves up and doing technical stuff. But I can't operate effectively as a CIO or a CTO if I'm doing that. So I've got to have people I can rely on, people that I can delegate to, and people that I can also trust that if I'm not in the room, I know they're going to make the right decision. So that's probably the big learning I've got. And I guess I've been lucky enough that I've built those teams and built those relationships over the years that as I move through different roles, I quite often will end up working with those people again, either in different firms or they'll be working on the other side as a vendor or a supplier. And it's great. I actually find that quite often I'll have a problem and I'll be thinking of how do I solve that problem, and I already know people in the market, in my network, that can resolve that issue for me. So it's just a matter of reaching out, having a chat and solving it that way. Yeah,
networks are definitely important. From point of view of like the whole question of like work-life balance, I mean, how do you do that?
Well, luckily at Grant Thornton, we've got a 9-day fortnight, so that's one way to tackle it.
Oh, nice.
I guess the culture of the firm makes a big difference. So some of the organisations I've worked at, it has been a very full-on, very fast-paced, 24/7 type operation. And in those situations, again, it comes back down to the team. You got to resource that team correctly so that you can actually flex things around as people need some leave or need some time off or need a break. And you can sort of move people in and out of projects or work on different workloads as needed. I think it's all down to trying to resource the team, trying to make sure you don't have single points of criticality or single points of failure, I guess. If you've sort of shared the workload around the team, I think you can sort of manage most situations quite well. And it is something that you sort of adapt as you get older, I guess. When I was younger, before I had kids, it was much easier to just work long hours or through the night or through the weekends. When you're juggling school schedules and sport and all the other things that go on in your personal life, you do need to find ways to just sort of be able to delegate and switch off and move things around. But yeah, GT's been really good for that. I found the balance has been really good, and it's something we focus on as a firm. We really focus on the well-being of our people here.
Oh, brilliant. And recently, I think we were just talking before, recently you've been overseas and been to a conference and that sort of stuff overseas, and with a bit of banter on LinkedIn about, which is fantastic and things. And one of my abstract questions is, if you could actually have one superpower that you could actually, for work, what would it be?
I don't know. Superpower for work. That's a tough one. I'm thinking if I could find a way to clone myself, that would be that would be awesome. So I can work on multiple things at that multiple times. But that's probably a good one. I think that'd be a good one.
Yeah, so cloning yourself?
Yep, I think so.
And I mean, what the people that I guess from point of view of the people that would work in your team, what sort of superpowers would you like them to have? What kind of things what things actually would be useful to you?
I think you want to have different skills from everybody. Everyone comes with a different perspective, so I think having a bit of diversity in your superhero team, I think, is a good thing. There's a number of people that might actually watch this recording that I have worked with in the past, and will know that we actually had project teams where we did we actually gave ourselves the roles of the Avengers. So there might be a few of those. I would say just having different skill sets and different perspectives, I think, is a superpower on its own. Yeah, no, brilliant. Excellent, Ben. Look, I'd like to thank you very much for your time today. Amazing insights as always, and fantastic discussion, and very enjoyable. Thank you so much, Ben. No worries. Thanks for having me.